Now that we have a set of theme styles to work with, it's time to create our global color palette. That is one place where we're going to set and manage all of our brand colors. Here are the colors that we're using on this site, at least to get started with. I've dropped a list of all the hex color codes below this video for you. It's very simple. We have a very dark grey color for text and headings, almost black actually. Having headings the same color as body copy always looks good because it's clean and simple. We then have a primary and secondary color, plus 3 background colors that we can choose from. So let's set these up. Over to our theme styles. First up, I'd advise that you just ignore this colors panel completely. I think it is maybe an early idea that the devs had for managing colors, which has since been replaced. So we can set our own color palette without being restricted to these preset options. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this panel disappeared at some point. So let's close it down. There isn't one single place that you go to set your global color palette in Bricks. It's actually available anywhere that you can set a color, which is much more efficient. So I'll go into typography and body. And so while we're setting our body copy text color here, we can also set up our entire global color palette as well. I could have chosen any element though. Now, we have a color palette here already, but we want to create our own blank palette from scratch. And yes, just as we created our own set of theme styles, we're going to create our own color palette too. So scroll down at the bottom of the color panel, see the name of the currently loaded palette is default. Well, we want to just create our own. So click the plus icon, give it a name. Again, you might give the name of the client or project. I'm going to call it the name of this course again, like I did with the theme style. You can call it what you like. And note here again, you could import an existing color palette if you wanted to. And hit create. Now we need to actually load the palette that we've just created. Here it is. And now we have no colors at all, which is great because we have a blank slate. I'll add our first color for text and headings. So I'm going to paste the hex code into this field. Remember, they're all listed under the video. Then save. And here it is. Note that it's currently called Color 1. We're going to name all our colors something a bit more meaningful very soon. Next color, primary. So I'll paste in the hex code for that. And save. And there's our second color. I'm going to carry on now and paste in the hex codes for the remaining 4 colors. And after I paste in the code for each one, all I do is hit save to save that color to the global palette. And yep, you can see on the canvas, the colors are going crazy. That's because each time I add a color to the palette, it's also setting it as the body text color because that's what we're currently editing. I'll fix that shortly, don't worry. And also just be aware, if you set a color in the color picker and don't hit save, well, it just applies that color directly to whatever element you're styling as a one-off. It doesn't save it to the global palette to use elsewhere. Okay, so there's our colors all saved to the palette. And when we set the color of anything on this site, we'll always choose from one of these colors. I always like to add white to the palette as well. So the hex code for white is 6Fs and save that as well. And if you're wondering why we have 2 colors in the palette that are the same, primary and accent BG, that's because it just gives a bit more flexibility in future. So if we later decide, actually, we want our accent background color to be different to the primary color, well, we have the flexibility to change that. Now, although you don't have to do this next step, I think it'll be nice to name these colors just so they're more meaningful to us in future. Currently, we're in grid view. So to make finer edits, we have to come into list view. That's here. Now click on the first one. That gives you the pencil icon to edit. Give this color a name. This one's text. Hit the tick to save. I'll do that for the others as well. So click, edit, type the name, and save. Click, edit, type the name, and save. And do that for all of them. Remember, this is a one-time job at the start of the project. I'll speed this up a bit here now because I realise that naming colours isn't a great spectator sport. And once you've named them all, we can then click the grid view icon to come back to the grid. Notice here how the little green dot shows the active colour is currently white. That means our body text color is white, which is no good. So I'll apply the text color to the body text. Great. Now our site's body copy color is set to our global text color. You can see that with the green dot here, plus it's the bigger circle color here as well. And that's our global color palette set and ready to go. As a totally optional final step, we can also set the color of each of these boxes on the page to their corresponding color in the palette. Now that is just to be able to see the site's brand colors there on the style guide page, just for easy reference for anyone in future. To do that, I'm going to click on the swatch for the text color, then come over to the style panel and into background. I previously added just a light grey background color so that you can actually see the box. I'm going to replace that now with the text color from our palette. Same for primary. Click into the primary box, into background color, choose the primary color from the palette, and I'll do the rest of these one by one. I think you get the idea. And there you go. Again, that last bit is a totally optional step, just if you want to see the colors on the style guide page. Feel free to skip that step if you like. So your task now is to create your global color palette in your project. And once that's done, we'll move on to setting our theme styles for typography. But first, I need to have a little talk with you about REM. See you there shortly.